Right now on Tech Radio, Bezos beats Musk.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online, we bring you the latest in tech from around Ireland and, of course, the world. This week, we have good news for Blue Origin. Spotify gives up on beating AI slop, and an ethical hacker gives us a harsh reality check. Plus, Camara's Cormac Lynch talks about how AI has reinvented the charities mission in Africa.
From techcentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson, who's out and about today. As we record, you're at the closing day of Dublin Tech Summit. How's it been? Have you enjoyed?
It's been super, super busy, I have to say. And I'm also glad to say we have an interview coming in the next few weeks from it with Andrew Melchior, who CTO of Massive Attack. Take from that what you will. It's actually a fabulous conversation, so I'm looking forward to sharing it with everybody.
Excellent. We look forward to that. Listen, loads of news going on this week, and we keep it short because you're out and about. Blue Origin going to the moon.
Do you know what? Elon Musk
how mad was... Go on.
He's having a tough time with it lately. I mean, he lost his case against OpenAI, a case that was basically, hey, I'm sad, so I'm taking you to court. And now he's been beaten to the punch by Blue Origin on 3 unmanned missions to the moon. Now, Musk might say, unmanned? I don't really care about that kind of thing anyway. I didn't want your stupid mission. I would not be surprised if that was the official line from SpaceX, to be honest. But still, you know, the idea is that these 3 missions will be the foundation blocks of an actual moon base, which is expected to cost around $20 billion, which means... excuse me, it will probably cost about 40 billion.
So just let me confirm this in my head. This is a gig, if you can call it that, for NASA.
Yep.
So NASA are the ones, sorry, the reason I'm asking this is NASA are the ones who are going to the moon to build the moon base, whereas I would have thought it would have been Musk going to the moon to build the moon base in preparation for Mars. So it's got to doubly hurt.
Yeah, bear in mind what the branding is going to be on this. This is a NASA mission. If NASA were to contract either SpaceX or Blue Origin, what does that mean? Is it just lunar base, or is it lunar base brought to you by NASA in association with insert company? I don't think anyone cares. Do you care? Would you go to a moon base called, SpaceX One or something? I'm
actually reading an Andy Weir book about the moon. I've forgotten the title of it, but anyways. So it's kind of interesting that this is in my head. When you talk about it, all I can see is a massive Amazon fulfillment center on the moon.
Oh, goodness.
Can you imagine?
It's our grand future amongst the stars. Data centers in space and fulfillment centers on the moon.
I know. Isn't it absolutely bananas what's going on? Jeff Bezos, let's focus in on him this week, because there was a bit of a car crash interview where he was trying to defend taxation. Give me the lowdown.
Yeah. Well, we kind of have to mention this for virality as much as anything else. A lot of it doesn't have much to do with this, but Jeff Bezos gave an interview at CNBC, kind of looking for a little bit of glaze, a little bit of shine, a little bit of billionaires are people too, don't you know? And he was asked about, taxing billionaires more. And he did this wonderful piece of deflection in that he went from, tax billionaires more to, no, but lower earning people should be paying nothing. To which the question asked, well, you still have to pay for the services. I mean, just getting people who shouldn't be paying as much tax to pay nothing. I mean, what are you on about? So that was kind of people's basic appraisal of it. That there is, you probably know this more than I do. You can probably remember this bit of trivia, but there's a line of income at which you start getting, your life in order, and you become more happy with yourself and your situation and all that, and your happiness reaches a certain level at, I can't remember what the actual income is, but it's like a pretty, it's a healthy diagonal line. And then once you reach a certain level of income, it just plateaus. And it's just it stops mattering how much money you're making. But, so you have these, millionaires and billionaires who have hoarded wealth, and they're no happier than the rest of us. In fact, some of them are pretty dang miserable. So the idea of, well, here's money I will never spend, how dare you tax it? It's not a great argument. I don't know, Dusty, am I getting too lefty in my old age?
Maybe you're getting a bit lefty in your old age. I'm not going into the whole taxation side of things, but yes, it is. It should be fair, and of course it isn't. And the people who are at the higher end of things are able to use all kinds of this, that, and the other to reduce their taxation. But that said, anytime that I see these stories coming up, it does show that the people at the top end are paying the majority of tax. They probably should be paying more. Do you know what I mean? I think that, somebody like Jeff Bezos is probably paying, say, maybe $1 million in tax, whereas he should be paying $1 billion. I don't know what it is, but
they'll say, look, nobody pays more tax than me. And it's like, well, of course, nobody has as much money as you. That makes sense.
Well, now have a look at the President of the United States of America. We shall not mention him by name because we don't want to ruin our day. I believe the last report on his tax results was that he paid in 2016 and 2017, when he was president the first time round, a sum in tax of $750 for the year.
Don't mess with me. I'm having a lovely day out, Dusty.
You see?
I'm meeting interesting people. I'm learning about new companies. I'm having my mind expanded. Don't bring me back to, no. Can we talk about something happier?
Yes, let's talk about Spotify and music and all of this wonderful new music that's being uploaded. To 28 to 40% of new music every day is now thanks to wonderful AI.
Now thanks to wonderful AI. But here's the kicker. And this is really interesting from my perspective anyway. Less than 0.5% of the total listening time is actually hoovered up by AI generated content. So it's 40% worth of the content, almost half the service is AI generated, just in pure volume sense. But that also means half that catalogue is not really being listened to. So there's an awful lot of people clearly trying to game the system, because if you want, relaxing music, there's, things on YouTube that are like generic relaxing music and it's 12 hours long. And you can just click on that and away you go. So, I've seen instances of, streams being bought in the same way that you might buy followers on X or Facebook or what have you. Or people are creating bots to listen to music created by bots and hope to be monetized that way. This is the world we live in now. So
tell me about the licensing deal, though, that's been done with Universal.
Yeah. So, more about sort of the world of music than I do from an industry perspective. But Universal is one of the industry giants, I suppose. And they have struck 2 licensing deals, actually. One with TikTok and one with Spotify. But the one with Spotify is quite interesting, because it will allow you, well, if you're a Spotify premium customer and you've spent extra on top of your premium for this little add-on, you will be able to do your own covers of your favorite Spotify songs.
Now, when you say your own covers of your favorite Spotify song, are you talking about you singing along and being the singer on the songs?
Yeah.
I know you've got your favorite bands. Do you think you would do that with your own favorite band songs?
Well, they're all instrumental, so it doesn't really bother me.
There's always a catch at Niall Kitson. Always a catch at Niall Kitson. Yeah. I mean, essentially, you're just turning it into karaoke. I don't see the advantage. Whatever, but
yeah, I don't see anyone making any money out of this. except for Spotify.
No. Yeah. Especially with
but what's
the
nice
artists.
on paper, anyway, is that the original artist whose material has been reworked and covered by users, they actually do get paid for it. So I think that's something, some sort of salve for the original creators. Whether that's good enough or not, I don't know.
Well, you see, these services drive me kind of a little bit nuts in some ways. I know they have to grow and they have to offer new things all the time. Spotify is a music app, and it will now give me audiobooks. Why did I ask for that? And now it's giving me karaoke, and it's like, why did I ask for that? Do you know what I mean? It's like, can you just please be a music app? I use it for podcasts, all right, but even at that, I'm kind of going, why do I have to have music and podcasts in the same app? Like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm very cranky today, now.
You are very cranky. You're cranky, and I'm out having a grand time.
You're
trying
out
to
of the
bring me
office.
down?
That's what it is. Exactly.
That's it.
You're out
having
there.
an away day, an in-service day, if I was a teacher.
Listen, let's get on. Another really interesting story this week. I'm dying to hear this one about an ethical hacker who's warning that AI is making it hard to compete. In what sense with hacking?
Yeah, well, we have had the Pwn to Own competition. It's an annual competition where ethical hackers are brought together and basically told or given a piece of software and be like, okay, here you go. Person who breaks it the most wins. I'm simplifying it, but this is the idea: is that ethical hackers are set a task, and it's up to them to break down whatever a piece of software, as one does. Now, one of said ethical hackers, a woman by the name of Valentina Palmiotti, also known as Chompie, came out and said that, look, I used to make money, I make money doing bug bounties, right? It's basically companies pay me to find stuff that's wrong with their software in the wild, right? And I get paid for this. But I use AI as a tool to help me out. But here's the problem. Everybody else is using AI too. And systems like Claude Mythos, which you remember got released in the world and hastily retracted because it was, inverted commas, too good. And indeed, Chompie says, do you know what? Yeah, Mythos is pretty dang good. It's probably as good as me. So this is something to be very, very careful about. As you know, like Mythos a couple of months ago identified something like 1,600 vulnerabilities in software programs the world over, some of which were issues that had been there for years and never been identified. I think 20 or 30 years in some cases. So, to be expected, I suppose. Kind of inevitable, really. What do you think?
I think it is. That's the genius of AI. I summed it up nicely in my own head when I was thinking about it during the week. We've spent the last 20 or 30 years building this internet just full of all kinds of information. But there's so much of it, how do you sort it out? And now the answer has arrived with AI. That's exactly how you sort it out. So,
yep.
Yeah, the way that it's able to get in and to look at code and to do all of that kind of stuff, it doesn't surprise me at all. And I think we are grappling, as we did back after the in around 2000, like how do we handle this internet and how do we handle credit card payments and all that kind of stuff. One thing that we were talking about back at the time, and we still haven't sorted it out, is how to do micropayments online. And one of the things they were talking about, it sounds very simple. It's like, okay, if you want to read this article on this newspaper website, it's 1 cent.
Yeah.
And you would just click, yeah, go on, I want to read it, 1 cent, whatever, that hasn't happened, interestingly enough, especially in this age of Bitcoin and stuff like that, where you're able to do kind of microtransactions with it. Strange. However, interesting that now also on AI, we have had some fairly heavy and serious comments about AI and its effect on society from an unlikely source.
Yeah, at Pontifex. I don't know if that account is still live on X. Pope Leo in a gosh, it was a 42,000 plus word encyclical entitled Magnifica Humanitas, or Magnificent Humanity, in which he makes some comments about AI. And he sort of prefaced it. He said some very nice things. I'll just throw out some quotes and see what you make of it. He said, "Humanity in all its grandeur and woundedness must never be replaced or surpassed. We can embrace the technological progress that elevates suffering and unlocks new possibilities, provided that we do not abandon the very essence of our humanity, namely the capacity for relationship and love." Shots fired, Dusty. Shots fired.
Yeah, we're already seeing the capacity for a relationship being ebbed.
Yeah, well, and, he goes on to talk about the use of AI in warfare as well, and its unethical use in weapons, which we saw was, Anthropic's falling out with the US government when they said, okay, we're not into Claude being used for powering drone strikes or anything like that. We're out. To which the US government went, well, guess what? We think you're a security risk. So there. And, consequently, I mean, Claude has had, Anthropic, / Claude, has had an absolutely fantastic year for PR. First with those brilliant Super Bowl ads, and then followed up by this, by getting dropped by the Trump administration. Two things that have actually driven its growth no end. I mean, if you want to do well in the world, just find yourself a good enemy.
You know what? It was
That's
really interesting. Yeah. Another interesting story, just kind of on that same note, is after Google I/O last week and all of the AI that they're introducing into Google search, apparently downloads for DuckDuckGo have absolutely gone through the roof in the States. It's more of a privacy it's a privacy browser. It doesn't track where you're going. It doesn't allow kind of cookies or whatever it happens to be. And it's very, very privacy focused. Whereas Google search is the complete opposite. Yeah. But it's just interesting to see that, and it's particularly in America, all right? Not necessarily so in Europe, but particularly in America, there's been a huge uptake on it,
Yeah, there's another browser you could think of as well, Brave. Have you used it?
I've used Brave, yeah, but Brave wouldn't be as private as DuckDuckGo. That's it. DuckDuckGo are very much on privacy, and you can hit a little icon in it, which will just burn. It doesn't keep any history, So it's good for that side of things.
One last point on Pope Leo's encyclical. What was interesting was the response, because I when I heard about this, I was like, oh, here we go. It turns out a lack of response. In a sense, big tech has turned the other cheek. No official statement from anyone. Which is, probably the smart play.
It's the smart play, yeah. Don't take on the Pope. All right. I think the Pope, what he's saying is, there's probably a lot of weight and gravitas to it, but it's very much nice to have. We're living in Pandora's box. The genie's out of the bottle, et cetera, et cetera. Who's going to stop it? Not the Pope.
I don't know. This Pope is from Chicago. He knows the what's what. Anyway.
Who knows? Listen, let's wrap it up there for the news for this week. Niall, as always, thank you very much.
Delivering Irish tech news since 2006. This is Tech Radio.
Camara is a successful Irish charity famous for sending reconditioned computers to Africa to help with the teaching of digital skills. And of course, these days, digital skills includes AI. Niall Kitson had a chat with Camara's founder, Cormac Lynch, about how their mission is being changed by AI.
Cormac, we've had 20 years of Camara. It's a bit of a milestone. But, from small shoots, great things do grow. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how the organisation has grown and indeed changed over that time.
So it actually, I think November 2005 is when we registered the organisation. It's a little bit over 20 years ago. And I think that's when we sent out our first container of computers. It was about 100 computers to Ethiopia. they were, if people can remember back, they were Pentium 2 computers, and they were big CRT screens. We managed to get 100 of them into a box, into a container, and sent them out to 2 colleges in Ethiopia, and then went out about 6 months later to see the impact of technology on education. And in the first college, it was, they were using them like almost 24 hours a day. They were, they were so hungry for it. It was just, there was nurses and teachers and everything. And in the second college, a government college, they were still in the boxes. And that was a bit of a shock to us because they didn't really understand how to use technology in education. And from that, we realized very early on that the hardware was really not the, you needed hardware, but then it was all the other stuff that needed to be added on top to make sure the hardware was worked. So that was training and maintenance support. So over the 20 years, well, from early on, we've kind of realized, well, we need to put proper training in for the teachers. We need to make sure the computers keep working. We need to make sure they have a proper facility to start using them, and needs to have the proper software. So all that other stuff, which maybe we take for granted, was a real learning for us. And that's kind of, what we've been doing ever since. So we had to set up operations on the ground. We couldn't do it remotely from Ireland. Oh, yeah, one of the things we used to send out volunteers from Ireland every summer to do the training. And then we go back the next year to the same schools, and the teachers had left, or, the training hadn't been followed up. So that was another reason we said, well, we need to do the training. We need to have people on the ground who do the training. So that's why we set up the hubs in these countries. And so we've one in Ethiopia now, one in Kenya, one in Tanzania, and one in Zambia. And they do all the hard work. And we basically keep them, we try and support them in doing that. So that's the evolution. And then now we're sending out Pentium 5s, Pentium 6s, Pentium 5s and Pentium 7s. Is that what they're called now? Well, i5s and i7s.
i5s and i7s.
Sorry.
Yeah,
But anyway, so the computers are more powerful. The software is probably better. And last year, the one thing which hasn't really improved that much is internet capability, which is surprising. I mean, some schools do have it, but it's all very low grade internet. It's not what we would expect. And then a lot of schools still don't have it, or have it very periodically. So that's the one thing which really hasn't moved with the times. And so large parts of where we operate just don't have the connectivity which we take for granted. And then switching to me personally, I went back to college a couple of years ago, and I did a master's in computer science. And in the middle of the master's, ChatGPT launched. So I'm there trying to do my programming and, getting stuck and all that. And all my fellow classmates started to embrace ChatGPT, and they were like flying ahead. And I was like, and then one of them said to me one day, well, why aren't you using AI to, help you on this? And then when I did, it was like it transformed everything. And it was just such a powerful, this was back in 2022. Was that when November 22? Mm-hmm. Was that when it?
Yeah.
So I was a very early adopter. And funny enough, even though I was in class, all the students in the class were even then paying ChatGPT. So they found so if you can think students paying for something, they must have seen real value of it. So I was a very early adopter of that, and ever since, and then I tried to figure out, well, how can we now somehow bring this very powerful tool to these very poor schools? Bearing in mind that even in Ireland, like people weren't using it, 2-3 years ago. So, but we must be able to bring it somehow. So then last year, we developed an offline version of an AI tool, and and then started putting it into a few schools, and started showing some teachers and started showing some Ministry of Education officials this offline tool. And like everyone was just like, it really, really looked like, I know people say technology is magic, but this really looked like magic. And so the ministries of education and the schools kind of been saying to us, yeah, please bring this to us. This is kind of really going to make a big difference to us. So that's kind of what we've been doing at different speeds in different countries.
That's fascinating that your own personal journey is sort of intersected with the technological advances. Yeah. I mean, would this have been a case of you would have just continued with your previous operational model had you not become such an early adopter of ChatGPT?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, almost certainly. I just found it so useful, and I use it. I mean, I use it every day. And I just find it so powerful. I am aware of its limitations. I mean, I have some stories of how, it really hasn't been useful. So I do know that it has limitations, but it has so much power as well. And I think that really has, I would say that I was the one really pushing to kind of get it into our education delivery program. And I know other people would have done it eventually, but I think, to try and get it in and to get it in a way that could be used in really poor schools was kind of, really what last year was about. And so, yeah. So
it's also interesting that you went for an on-device solution as opposed to, looking for a connectivity-based solution like ChatGPT, like Claude. When it came to making sort of the selections of what software to use, what language model to use. How did that process come about? Was it a case of, okay, here are the open source options available to us. What's the size of the community like? What's the level of engagement like? Here's a large language model. What are the number of parameters involved? What kind of debates were being had?
So what we did was we looked at existing solutions that were out there. So there were some existing solutions. One was called Misty, M-S-T-Y. I don't know if you're familiar with. And there was another one, GPT for All. So we looked at those. We said, okay, well, this is, we can pick our models and we can, and then the team. So actually, I came up with Misty and I showed it to the team in Ethiopia, and I said, well, can we somehow develop this? They then identified another one, which was open source, in which they could configure themselves. And it's based on the GPT for All open source initial interface. But they've really modified it to the Ethiopian education system, and they were able to do that. So again, great credit to the Ethiopian team to be able to do that. And the interface system, I'm happy to I don't know if I can share videos or I can share stuff online, but I'd be happy to just show you what it looks like. But yeah, it was the Ethiopian team that kind of created this specifically for the Ethiopian system.
That level of localization is fascinating as well, because normally, I suppose in times past, you would have been looking at, a version of Microsoft, something that would be palatable in another country. To kind of be able to select something and build it from the ground up must have been quite liberating, but quite a challenge as well.
Yeah, but again, to be fair to our teams on the ground in Africa, we had largely been a Linux-based house, if you so to speak, where we could. So we'd put Linux on, and then the local teams had adapted that for kind of the local. They were able to do that. Now we've gone a little bit more Microsoft Windows now, just because governments, that's what they want in their schools is Microsoft Windows. But we did have a bit of a track record in localizing it. But actually, it's so important to be able to localize for us not to say, here's what you should use, but to listen to particularly the Ministry of Education saying, well, this is what we would like or not like, and for our teams to have the capability to be able to do that.
Let's look at then again at that sort of operationalization of what Camara does. You're operating digital hubs, digital learning hubs now. I gather you've got something like 150 of them running at the moment. How has that model of training changed as the organization has gone on? Because during COVID in particular, we got used to doing everything over Zoom. We're all used to taking courses online in one way, shape or form. So how did that get integrated into what you do?
To be honest, our model is still pretty much the same. Again, there's not as much, because of connectivity problems, there's not as much online work in the countries we operate in. So during COVID, when the schools were closed down, there was no education being done. There was no way to do that. So even now, all our training is done in person. So our AI training is done. Our trainers go to the schools, and the teachers and principals sit in the computer lab, and it's done kind of in person now. And so it's just the offline way of doing it, and that will probably continue until connectivity improves in some of these countries. I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it absolutely does, because we've come across communities that were building momentum, we're building steam, and then COVID happened, and it's almost like they disappeared. And when sort of restrictions were lifted, it was almost like starting again from scratch. Yeah. Was that kind of your experience as well?
Yeah. I mean, COVID was, our operations shut down for best part of, 1 to 2 years. We couldn't operate in the schools. We couldn't get computers, couldn't ship computers. We couldn't go to the schools. We couldn't, even in, funny enough, I think in Africa they didn't close down quite as much as they closed down here for whatever reason. I think by necessity more than anything, it was just like much harder to close down everything. But they did close down the schools, and so that was there was a kind of 1 or 2 years where we just weren't able to do anything.
So that must have presented a tremendous amount of turnover with your staff then as well. So Did you have to go to, well, I don't want to quite say go to the market, but did you have to recruit everything from scratch, or were there people that just said, look, we'll step back, but as soon as you need us again, we're available? Yeah,
I think we were doing kind of small amounts of work, but it certainly affected, certainly in Ireland, some people in the UK, again, I think because we were supported by the government works, the government provided some support to be able to keep people engaged. And in Africa, though, it was there wasn't a huge amount that people could do, but our hubs did manage to kind of keep most people engaged in some fashion.
So then just to look towards how AI is being I suppose, taught, or how people are engaging with AI through Camara at the moment. We talked about the models that we're using. Is it still a classroom setting? Are you looking at, look, this is what the likes of ChatGPT can do for you? Or does it go a step further and go, look, here's an example of how it can work for you in the classroom. Here's an example of how it changes what we consider information, or what we consider teaching to be, and what the outputs of education to be?
It's a good question. I can't show, but if I could show you. So the smallest model we use is the Llama model. It's 1 billion parameters. It's 875 megabytes in size. If you can think, it's less than 1 gigabyte in size. And when you think about that, it's like it's nothing. But if I was to, and we've done it, we say create a lesson plan for trigonometry, for grade 4 maths, it'll do that. Or tell us about the colonization of Ethiopia, it'll do that. It's incredibly powerful. So what we're training the teachers, and it's all teacher focused at the moment. So what we're training the teachers to, how do you do a lesson plan in any subject? how do you use some MCQs, how do you do a presentation, in different subjects. And the other thing which we've done, which is really important, is we've fine-tuned that model. So we've added the actual textbook curriculum into the offline tool. So if they're doing a lesson plan, again, let's say on chemical bonding or in chemistry, grade 12, it will pick up the grade 12 textbook in chemistry for Ethiopia to do that. So it means that the teachers know at least they're teaching to that syllabus. And when they're doing MCQ questions, they know that it's tied. And that's really important. So it's not a general tool, but it's really tied into the syllabus. And so the Ministry of Education, when we can show that, they'll know that this is really just adding to what they're trying to do. And that's really important. So the training of teachers is really important to us. Not only here's what it can do, but also here's some of the pitfalls. So data is, using data, and where you get the data from is you need to kind of question that. You need to question when you get stuff back, is it really true, or, is it hallucination or whatever? You need to be able to do that. And also, don't give up your role. This is meant to make your role better. It's not to replace you. So don't just do this and then, don't do anything. This will help you. So it's training the teachers to be able to do that is really important. And there's a UNESCO framework for AI in education. So that's the training model that we're using for the teachers. And so as that adapts and is modified, we'll continue to follow that and modify it to the local circumstances.
And that was Cormac Lynch from Camara chatting with Niall Kitson.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's almost it for our show this week. We've got more stories to come online for you at techcentral.ie, including what, Niall?
Yeah, we have what I think of the Status Pro X true wireless earphones, why Irish IT professionals are making more money on average compared to our European peers, and Huawei is on the verge of a breakthrough in chip manufacturing.
All of those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday in the studio with a brand new show. In the meantime, please do share our podcast with a friend. Just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Take care.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.